Hi everyone, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So this video is a follow-up on a video I posted earlier this month in regard to Trump's health, in which I said he was entering a very dangerous zone. So I'm going to go over all the various transits to his natal chart that point in this direction. And the first of these is the Eris cycle, because it is parked literally in the 25 plus degree of Eris, making a square to his 12th house Venus. This is an angle and an aspect that will continue in perpetuity going into the next decade because of the Eris motion, which is literally at a glacial pace. It's covering very little ground in the solar system, and so it's locked into a square. Now, separately, this was the precise correlation back in July to the emergence of the Epstein issue, because the 12th house, where the Venus is, as well as the meaning of Venus itself, is that kind of thing. The dirty deeds, the secret love affairs, all of that is in that house. The problem is that house is also the deepest health house. It's literally when you go to the hospital, you might be at death's door. And so if you're making a square into that house, it signals danger. And this alone makes it very unlikely that either the Epstein issue is going to go away or that his health issues are going to go away. And part of the reason I'm doing this video is that, in contrast to, let's say, a while back in the summer, now we're seeing more and more speculation, including all these videos on YouTube, literally titled, "Is he dying? What's happening here?" In the deepest possible way. So, continuing with other angles that are present, the Pluto cycle in early Aquarius is also in an uncomfortable place, although I will admit it's probably the least problematic, in that the angles being made are half square and square and a half. So it's just very irritating. But we have to remember that the natal Pluto is in Leo, and so it carries that energy. Leo is a cardiac heart sign, and that has been one of the key speculations around potential heart failure, blood flow, which is what Leo connects to. And so being where it is, again, for years, because it has to cover those degrees to irritate the moon, the Uranus, and the sun. And this takes us into 2028, whereupon it'll start to square, pardon me, it'll start to oppose itself. So this Pluto energy continues and is very irritating. But the biggest problems come from the Saturn, Uranus, Neptune transit situation, because, and this is what had sparked the video in early August, the Saturn cycle is now returning into Pisces via retrograde. It's been in Eris throughout the summer and really not far enough away to avoid triggering the energy by way of a 150 to his ascendant. The precise point, we're about to reach it now, because in very late Pisces, you get a 150-degree aspect to the ascendant. The ascendant is the primary incarnation point, other than the fact that it's also a person's personality presentation, their self-image. It's also literally the body. It's where you incarnate. It's where you enter the earth world. You take your first breath, that's your ascendant. So if you're challenging that point via a 150, you're putting a lot of health pressure on the person. And Saturn, in the early stages now in September, it's doing the 150, but it backtracks all the way to 25 degrees later in the year. And along the way, it does the 150 to the rising Mars. That's adding to the pressure. You're hitting a rising planet. Very dangerous stuff. And Neptune is doing pretty much the exact same thing, because as it comes back into Pisces, it then does the 150 to the ascendant degrees, but that Neptune will also station at those degrees. And so you have a Neptune station, direct 150 hit to the ascendant, and a Saturn station, direct 150 to the ascendant than Mars, though the station point of Saturn is more a direct hit to the Mars. And if that weren't enough, we have the Uranus cycle, which currently is an early Gemini, but it's going to backtrack a little bit later in the fall. It'll backtrack into Taurus, and as the turn of the year happens, it makes its way to a station directly squaring his Mars. This is where you get the sudden events, the shocking turn of events, let's say. And Uranus is famous for that, as well as neural issues and anything related to strokes, because strokes tend to have a connection to the nervous system as well. So all of that is very, very threatening. And this zone might be literally the end, or it might be some really serious setback of some kind, or at the absolute best, declining health conditions. That's almost impossible to avoid. And if you then posit the idea, well, what if he gets through because he has presumably good enough genes to get through to the other side? Well, then what happens is that, yes, it's true that the Uranus will move into Gemini and leave the zone, but the Eris stays there, the Pluto stays there, and Saturn and Neptune also stay there, because Saturn then moves into Eris and makes its way to where his cardinal planets are, that infamous axis Hollywood T-square made by Eris, Mercury, and Neptune. It'll start to irritate that. So the situation doesn't improve. Why? Because that Saturn lives in the 12th house. That's the house of the hospital, the house where things can get really, really rough. And it also rules the opposite house, Capricorn, which is the primary health house. So that planet is loaded for bear. Wherever it goes, it brings that energy. Of course, always in the context of what we're seeing, just pretty self-evident, together with, let's face it, the actuarial age. This kind of activity in a chart is much more threatening the older you are, and particularly if you're showing signs of something happening, which he definitely is. So that's what the situation is, and I'll be keeping an eye on it, including reposting the transits that I'm posting today, in case a person, whenever it is, few weeks from now or a couple of months from now, wants to check out what the angles are. And I'll end by saying that bottom line on this, it's very, very serious. There's no question about it.